All right, we are rolling. What's up, everyone? Welcome back. It's Michael, Dr. Michael Moeller here of the Michael Moeller Mentality with my good buddy, Rhet Vaughan. And we're about to release the Rhetness. Is that right? Is that your Instagram saying?
It can be messy, but yeah, you got to release it.
What does that even mean?
Your ness, the
All right.
NESS, your Michaelness. You're releasing it. You just called it something different. Your mentality.
The mentality. Yeah, I guess it's kind of, same thing. What I'm doing. So today, we're going to break down some biohacks, talk about spirituality and Christianity a little bit. Rhet and I have crossed paths in an interesting way, being raised a very similar way, and have had a lot of similar thoughts about kind of just questioning the system, especially from the spiritual standpoint. On my end, I was born and raised Catholic grade school. So I went to church 4 days a week. And, there were some things I agreed with, some things that I didn't agree with. And Rhet grew up, you were probably an hour away from me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very similar, both small town boys, kind of, born and raised in the thick of it, of the small town life. And then kind of growing up and looking out into the world and being like, what the heck is out there? Do you remember? I don't know if this is going to get too race and prejudice or whatever. Like, I've never met a Jewish person. I don't remember the first time I met a Jew. Like, I thought
South Park was where I learned about Jews.
Yeah, exactly. Really. And not to be like, I don't want to enforce the stereotype of like small town people, but like there is some things that we are not exposed to as much.
Exactly. You're closed off by your nature. It's not even a choice, hardly.
Yeah, and it's nothing to like rip on us or anyone else. It's part of everyone and they're part of life and their culture. So
yeah.
And then in a big town, in a small town, one of the big influences is your religion, which is interesting because I think we're losing that now in small towns. I don't know what it's like. My church now, we used to have 3 masses and they were packed when I was home for Christmas.
Yeah.
Now there's no one.
Yeah. Well, in my town, Nashville's a little bit bigger than McLeansboro. We're like 3,000 people in McLeansboro.
We're like 3,200.
Oh, yeah. Well, I grew up in Dale, which is considered a village about 6 miles south of McLeansboro.
Village.
I mean, surrounded by all gravel roads and woods and fields.
People don't get that, man. Like in the city, they're like, oh, you're from a small town like Belleville or like East St. Louis. I'm like, no. I'm like 50 miles of cornfield away from that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I grew up about a quarter mile from the church we went to, small missionary Baptist church.
So you were raised Baptist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my grandparents went there. That's on my dad's side. On my mother's side, her grandfather was a preacher, Presbyterian preacher.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, on both sides of my family, just Christian values, family values. I mean, a certain, I guess, moral compass was instilled in me early on, probably similar to you. I mean, not just because of the Christian thing, but just the geographical,
yep.
I mean, where we're at. We're surrounded by farming. I mean, humble, honest work. Coal miners, farmers, that's the majority of employment from around McLeansville in that area. But most people in my family were either preachers, teachers, coaches, or farmers. They were all
and I didn't even know that about you, that you had some preachers in the family. So it's in your blood, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And whenever you have something that obviously shaped, like my great-grandfather, it shaped his life so much, and his kids' lives and their kids' lives, how can you just walk away from that or ignore that? I mean, obviously there is something there. And even if I was maybe didn't feel real connected to it, I've always liked family history and genealogy, that type of thing. So just knowing that it played such a huge role in people that I love's lives, it's almost like I have a moral obligation as well. It's like, well, I'm at least going to respect it. If I don't believe it, if I don't follow it, that's one thing, but I'm at least going to respect it. I'm not going to just, drag it through the mud. Because that to me is the way I was raised. That's something I guess is a little disrespectful towards the people that raised me,
Yeah. And so kind of walk me through, again, we have similar stories as far as when you were younger, what spirituality meant, what you thought about it, what you thought about God, and where you've been. Because I think our story in that is going to be a story of the next 50 to 60 years. Rhet and I listen to a lot of the theological people right now, and Jordan Peterson being one of them talks about, Christianity, and we're kind of living on the dead carcass of an old system and be kind of revived. And you look at someone like Nietzsche who's saying that God's dead and we have to reinvent this. And
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure out my way through this. What is it? Do we hold on to Christianity? Is there a new way through this, or yeah?
Oh, you can't throw. I mean, no pun intended. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, kind of thing.
We see
There are
that a lot
certain
though.
things that, right, and it's so easy to, because if you don't want to subscribe to something, it's easy to just say like, "Oh, fuck, get it out of here."
Whole
Like,
thing's dumb.
I'm moving on. Yeah, I'm over that. And that's just, I mean, that's kind of a nice survival thing, I guess we've evolved to have in certain ways, to kind of disassociate ourselves from trouble, danger, anything that's a perceived threat.
Mhm.
But anyway, uh, being raised out in the country, I think, did something to me that I took it for granted. And it's something that, like, it really makes me, I miss it. Now I live in Collinsville, and I lived in
Big
St. Louis for
city.
a while. But yeah, not necessarily in the big city, but surrounded by cars and houses and Walmart and a life of convenience and comfort. Versus where I grew up, we weren't huge farmers like I think your family was, but we had 80 acres of land. We leased land to farmers by the time I was raised. My dad was raised cattle farm, hog farm, like they always had. They had their own meat, their own supply of food through the year, and grandmothers on both sides learning how to jar and can. So like, that's something that it's like, it's like
It's all
being mindful.
gone now, man.
It's yeah, and it's gone. And so to come from that upbringing, to be surrounded by what we live in now with this instant gratification type of society, it's got a lot of good things, but there are things that you can't skip steps for, and there's certain appreciation and gratitude that has to be earned. It's not something that you can just like, I'm going to meditate on being mindful about my food and then pig out on this food.
Mhm.
Like, it's different than if you watch this animal be raised and you cleaned it, you butchered it yourself, or grew
Mm.
the jalapenos yourself. That salsa tastes a little bit better in the summer, you know.
Yeah.
But as that relates to like Christianity and faith, growing up in the country, like, I knew there's just this connection between nature and God that I wasn't getting at church. Like, they never made that
Ooh, yep.
connection at the church that I was raised in. It was more like, and maybe it's just my little kid mind that never really grew out of it, but it was definitely ingrained in me early that there are rules to follow. We're to be obedient of God, and that God loves us, but we could go to hell. And there's this balancing act that as a kid, that fear tactics are something that we use
Yep.
as adults and to shape behavior for young kids. But is that really the parenting that I think that a God would use on people? Is like, I think he's a little bit more clever than that, and I don't think it's as black and white. That sounds like a human thing. And
Mhm.
so I did, as I got a little
So
bit.
what is Baptist? You were raised Baptist. What do the Baptists believe? They believe in Christ. They believe Jesus Christ came and
Yes,
died for your
yes.
sins, and then you believe in that and you're good to go, or do you need to act out things, 10 Commandments, or what?
Yeah, it seems like the new Baptists, or I'm sorry, missionary Baptists, the belief is once you are saved, once you accept Jesus Christ into your life,
Good.
and you're forgiven for your sins. And yeah, but I don't know. That wasn't necessarily you would think that's such good news that it would have been such a focal point growing up in church to tell us like, hey, you're loved. Hey, it's going to be okay. But it wasn't always this message of love. It was a lot of times it was a shame and guilt message.
Fear, going to
And
hell.
maybe that's my own moral conscience, saying,
Mhm.
well, I'm not living. I don't, I'm not perfect. And so
Well, and I think you hit on something there. This is what I hear from a lot of people in our generation, that they're like, well, the Catholic Church or Christianity, they're just fear. It's like they use fear to control you. But I'm like, there are things out there that we should be afraid of. And that when you grow up as a kid, you do see that like, oh, okay, there's this, you get imprisoned by fear when you're at church talking about hell and brimstone and fire. But there are things out there that are worth to be afraid of.
yeah,
What's the balance there?
yeah, sure. Um,
So I don't know.
I
And
guess,
was that a turnoff for you? The fear thing? Is that kind of what, I don't know if
no,
you
I
agree
don't
with
think it was the fear. I think what the turnoff was the simplicity and the closed-mindedness, which comes with the small town where the average age of this church is probably like 60.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of kids here. This is not a real progressive thinking population anyway. Definitely not. Man, when I was in third grade, or it was third or fourth grade, I had a friend that get pulled out and get homeschooled for the year because we were going to learn about evolution that year.
Oh,
Okay. And
yeah.
here's the evolution lesson that I remember. Literally, our teacher said, basically, it was almost like a what's his name? Mr. Garrison for South Park. It was like, basically, all right, some people think that you guys came from monkeys if you want to believe that, here's what this chapter says. If you don't want it, we're going to move on. And it's like, okay, but, you know, we'll stand there and say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning, and we'll, you know, do all these other things that are dogmatic and not inspiring education. And I remember I was young, but I was upset about that. I was like, what? There's an idea that, like, how stupid is that? That's how I was, because it was so opposite of what I was taught to me at the church. And I'm not saying either side. I don't know the right answer, obviously, but it felt wrong not to explore something else. You know, it felt wrong not to be curious about it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got a little bit older, and, you know, had access to different websites, there was a website called the Sam Effect. And it was a guy who basically wrote about like some intermittent fasting, some motivational quotes, and then like existential questions. And
when were you into that?
What's that?
When were you into the Sam Effect?
When?
Yeah, was this high school, college?
Oh no, I was probably like 20, 21.
Okay.
And at that point, I definitely had questions, but I also remember being 21 and getting in like drunk arguments with friends about religion, like defending church and defending God. But I hadn't been to church in like 3 years, but it was just obviously programmed in me. Mm-hmm. It was something that I knew I felt strongly about, but I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. And that's sort of like that thing where it's like, you know, you're the best one on the playground. You're just whipping everyone's ass in basketball. Yeah. And then someone else shows up and they're a little bit better than you. And you're like, oh, damn, you know, I'm really not that good compared to what else is out there. Mm-hmm. And so I really felt like there was just something missing. And nature felt like it. That felt like God to me. When I was out in the woods, or whenever I was out, you know, like during the summer nights, I remember like how many stars you can see from where I grew up. And it's something I was like, what else is out there?
That quote, what quote the Van Gogh is like, I don't know if I believe in God, but I know that I feel amazing when I look up at the stars or something. Did I say that quote?
Right. Yeah. Hang on. I can't hear. I don't know if it's my headphones or your microphone.
Can you hear me?
Jacked up.
Microphone testing 1, 2, 3.
On my headphones. Anyway, I can hear you though. But
yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. So yeah. Anyway, that just led me down a path of really personal development, spiritual development. You know, I realized that I was very closed off to a lot of things. That was out of fear, and so being closed off and oversimplified as a person, once I realized, had that like awakening of like, oh my God, I'm so small-minded, and I could be there's so much more out there that I don't have any idea about. It's almost like an embarrassing but motivating like kick in the ass of like, man, I need to pick up a book and read. Like I need to educate myself, because I just skimmed through school, man. I played sports.
Me too, man.
In a small town, you know, you dominate all 3 sports and everything if you're good at all. And so I had an inflated ego that wasn't earned, really.
You show up to class, you don't have to study. Get it? Yeah, I got like B's. I probably had an A average, but B's, and the C would slip in there. But I didn't really try. I didn't study.
Right.
Which is a terrible habit to kind of get into. And then when did you get into? Okay.
I got to do something different.
So I lost you now. Okay, I can hear you now.
All right, say something.
Say something.
Okay, because my headphones are wigging out. I can hear you better now.
Okay.
Anyway.
But when did you start getting into? I mean, Alan Watts was a big turning for me. Like Alan Watts, Terrence McKenna. I'm trying to think. Astral projection was the first thing that kind of got to me. I was Catholic in my day. You know, like you said, 2021. I started really questioning things. I'm like, does God exist? Am I just a meat machine? And I really started listening to some Alan Watts, and he put things in a different perspective for me.
That's funny, man. That was a stepping stone for me as well. It's like simple enough to grab my attention, but abstract enough to inspire.
Yeah.
Like such an unbelievable imagination that was lacking in my life before that. And that's kind of what, when we actually first met, we met when you were working at GNC and I was working at Harrisburg GNC, and we just kind of like, I came into your store and like we knew Collins, your boss, you know, my football coach, like weird, coincidence. And then I went to Edwardsville, and when I moved to Edwardsville, that's when things really started changing for me. I had a little bit of finally liberation from my hometown, and I was able to step outside of things. But then I'm working at GNC, and Ty Seeger gets a job, and he's talking about my friend. You got Graham Hancock. Do you know who this is? We were talking.
Graham Hancock.
Yeah. And
Joe
so,
Rogan, man. Joe Rogan's
yeah.
in there too.
Yeah. And so it was just like, oh, a lot of similarities between the three of us. So we kind of got on board with that stuff. And we've been feeding each other ever since. And that's what this has been more, our relationship has been as spiritually feeding to me as church has been in a lot of in more ways than some, because it's connection, and it's something that it's a biased free and judgment free platform, or I guess playing field for us to speak on. Because where if you go to church, a lot of times you are acting like everyone else is acting. You don't really know when to step outside or draw attention to yourself. So it just, I don't know. I'm not saying there's not a place for church or that I'm against it anyway. I mean, I've gone back to church in the last couple of years, and it's really been a huge part of my life that there was something missing, and that fills a hole for me. That provides me with something that I like doing. Do I think it's mandatory or absolutely necessary? No, I don't.
Well, I think church, more than anything on my end, feels a big need for our community. As I've gotten older, when we were younger and being from a small town, playing sports, being around the people we grew up with, the sense of community for me was always just kind of there. In medical school, I was around a good group of people. And now that I've graduated and I'm out in the real world, I have you have a handful of people that you might run into every other week. Right? Like you and I are best of friends, and we've hung out probably 10 times.
Yeah.
Total.
Yeah.
Besides the internet, besides texting and talking.
But I've talked to you more than I think anybody that I've actually been around about, and on different layers, of conversation. But the whole thing, it's like, you can't just go through the motions. If you're looking for spiritual meaning, if you're looking for an experience of God, this divine, this whatever, however you want to phrase it, you're looking for something that's other than just the physical and something that's magical. You can't get it going through the motions with anything. You can't get it by buying some yoga pants and going to one class. You can't get it by taking a cold shower for 10 seconds and then taking an Instagram selfie saying that you did it. Like there's no shortcuts to these things, and it takes a lot of hard work. And only in the last, couple of years have I been at a place where, like, okay, I still don't know shit about the world, but there's a few things I got it. Like, I know this now. And that's like, I'm starting to build these like things. These layers of certainty that, that kind of are the foundation of who I am, that keep me kind of going. Yep. Where before this journey, I had these layers, these foundations of certainty, but then you have your ego demolished, or you have, you get dumped, or you go to college and realize you don't have the biggest dick in the room. It's like, okay, I got to do some work on me. And maybe these things I thought were true are actually, that's faulty foundation. That's not good. That's not solid ground at all. So you got to kind of knock the legs out from underneath yourself and rebuild. And that's what we've been doing. And I don't think that, and maybe we'll have to do it again. Maybe we'll be in our 40s or our 50s and like, what, fuck, we didn't know shit back.
Dude, right? You'll be listening to this and like, listen to these dummies.
We should have been investing.
Yeah.
We should have been retired. We should,
I feel that way all the time. There's a level of personal development where you need to continue to get better and better. And then there's a level of like, man, how much can you take? How much can you take? After a while, when you deconstruct so many belief systems, like you're saying, your bedrock gets destroyed. Like some of the fundamental things that you stood on top of, you start quite like, like say that your belief system is 6 bricks deep. And when you smash through 3 bricks like that, you're like, oh shit, those bottom 3 bricks are going.
And most people bail at that point. Most people do. And that we have too. Like I've bailed, like, no, I'll go back to what I was doing. At least it was safe. At least it was comfortable.
Yep.
But like, you said last time, I think, about you always felt like a warrior. I don't know if I've always felt like, I've had this warrior spirit as much as I've had like this wise old man spirit. Like damn it. Like, I may not be the best fighter. I don't always put up the best fight. My mindset can get a little out of whack sometimes, but, when it comes down to it, like when my back's against the wall, like I know some things in my heart and my mind that like, that's what keeps me going. It's not that I'm like tougher than anybody, stronger, better fighter, better looking, better at anything. It's just, and I give that credit to my upbringing. I credit that to my family. I was young when my great grandpa died, but, people have told me before, someone that is a pastor now, is a preacher, has told me like, I knew your grandpa well, and I see a lot of the same things in you. Like you had that Jesus love that he had, and you have these things, these personality traits that are in you that maybe it is just the bag of genes I got passed down to me. Or maybe it's something from the environment that I was raised in. You know, you can't really pick either one, but you can decide how you interpret it and how you use it as fuel or as you use it as a crutch. I mean,
Well, and that's where I think I've been going back to Christianity for a lot of my belief systems. I think, kind of like the prodigal child, you go out and you experiment with some things. You say, hey, this is bullshit. Like, you're raised in the palace. And you're like, this is dumb. This is obsolete. This doesn't work. And then you go out and you live in the sticks for a little bit. And you're like, man, that castle was warm. Like that was nice. I had a doctor there. I had, clean water. And there's something about our generation, I think, that is open to the experimentation to try and find things that are better. But then there's also a little bit of, like you and I, man, we've come to, Rhett, let's drop some honesty right now. You and I have come on the brink of insanity several times, man.
Oh man.
Whether, whatever it is, like, and I can openly talk about one of my ayahuasca experiences where I literally questioned love. Like, it's like, I sat there and I was just confused, hopeless, and a little bit depressed, and put me in ayahuasca for the most part is a very beautiful thing, but you experience a lot of different things in there. And one of them, I felt terrible. I felt a low beyond a low that could be experienced in this world. And I was grabbing onto love. I'm like, oh, the one thing I know for sure that is real is love. And I was kind of feeling for it. And I was like, I don't feel it. And and that was when those bricks, I was like 6, 5. And I was like, okay, I got to get out of here. Got to get out of here. Get me out of here. Get me out of here. But then I was like, wait, where do I go? Like, once you lose love. And I think that is why it showed me how strong love is.
And what if, man, everything else said, what if that is the sole purpose of a religion or of a savior figure like Christ? What if that's the sole purpose, man? When I go to church, I see people who, you hear their testimonies and you can just kind of look at them and gather, like, they've not had it easy. They've been down and out. Like, they've had nothing. Like, I'm so damn privileged, man. I have no idea. And you too, like, we're so privileged. We don't even know how privileged we've got it in ways of, like, of our upbringing, not just because of this color of our skin. I'm not talking about
white male. Yeah.
I'm talking about just the amount of love and the breaks and the grace and the luxury we've had in our life, where whenever you are down and out, or when you're in that state of mind, like in the jungle, losing your mind, or you're, you just got fired and you're back on like crack or whatever the hell it is. Like there's some people that they need something to grasp to, or otherwise you're falling into the abyss with nothing to hold on to, nothing to grab, to cling to, where what if at least that was the sole purpose of the whole Bible and of the story of that. I mean, God, the Bible is a love story of God's love for us. That's what a friend of mine, Aaron, told me one time. It changed my perspective. It's like, this isn't just a doctrine of like, oh shit, do this, don't do that, heaven, hell, good, bad, all. It's not.
So how do you view other religions, like Buddhism, Hindu? I mean, I don't know a whole lot.
I'm only capable of shopping so much around there because it's like, man, I'm on a certain path. I'm 29 years old. I have a career, a family. Like, there's things like,
and you were raised a certain way. I think that's one thing I want to talk about, how we were programmed like with a Christianity template. We're archetypical Christianity. Like, that's the way I was raised. The values are implanted. And like, we see that now where a lot of people try and break away. And I'm like, I don't know. Gabriel Mate and a lot of the other psychological child psychologists talk about, you're implanted, you're templated, like your brain is developing, you come from nothing, and then you form the way you view in the world. And those first 7 to 10 years are so important.
That's what sanity is. That's what keeps that sanity. And when those times we've been on the brink of insanity, it's because like we're willing to erase that for a while. I mean, at least like, okay, let's clear that fog and like, what is here? Like, who am I really? And it does kind of get scary because you don't have that. And as far as like understanding other religions, I mean, all I can say is, from my perspective, if you truly understand the nature of Christ and Jesus, and you understand this message, and it's only personal, it's personal to every person. I don't believe there's any uniformed, just one way of understanding or accepting everything in the Bible. I think God speaks directly to people, not just through the Bible, but through everyday events, through little things like the language of the omens, like in The Alchemist, that book. There are ways that God speaks to us. And if you're feeling those feelings, if you're feeling that voice, that calling to something, and it's not something that's harmful, it's something that promises love and the betterment of yourself and of others, like that's a good thing to pursue. And you don't have to like subscribe completely. You don't have to put on your Buddha shirt on Monday, Jesus shirt on Tuesday.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that, even though our brains are kind of designed to do that type of branding and like, that tribal like behavior.
Hmm.
Man, you can dabble in a little of everything, but what's true in your heart and in your mind, like I don't think you're going to get that just from a book or from a certain brand of religion. It's going to come from your whole life experience and things you've been exposed to, and then the nature of who you really are. And that only you can answer that. Only individuals can answer that about themselves.
So what do you think of Jesus? Think he was a real guy?
Yeah.
Think he was a human? So you think he's a human being, died, rose from the dead, or what do you think?
I think that I think that the Old Testament is, I think, is the story of Christ begins in the Old Testament, not the New Testament.
Hmm.
So in the book of John, he says that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was good with God.
Mhm.
Okay, and then in Genesis it talks about how in the beginning God made, and God is light. Basically, they're saying God is light, and there's light. The word light is used so many times in the Bible as sort of symbolic of salvation,
Hmm.
as new birth, rebirth type of thing. Um, and so you can. I think you just have to read it for yourself to get. I can't explain it for someone else.
Yeah, see, I think that the idea of Jesus and what I'm seeing more and more, Jesus, the Bible, all of these things, they are, I don't even know how to describe it. It matches up no matter which vantage point you come from. That's why the complexity is so amazing, because you can come from over here and you can still see it. It's like if there's a mountain, you still see the top, even though it's facing east, and you look at it from the north. If you look at it from the south, it's still kind of the same thing. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, absolutely.
Like
That's what.
Jesus to me, when people say, was he a real human? I'm like, the spirit thing is what makes it. I'm like, if he's God, he was a spirit, and a spirit is it human? Yeah. It's kind of like all these things, like our vocabulary limits us, and that's the best way that we can
Absolutely.
elaborate on it.
Barrier. Yeah, yeah. Um, but I see like I see Jesus in different. I see glimpses of Jesus, and Jesus is the person. You're right. I struggle with that too. The whole Trinity thing. You're Catholic. You should have a better grasp on that, bro. What's
No,
going on?
man, dude.
Well, I didn't understand it. I wasn't even really exposed to it. I don't remember being exposed to it when I was younger. But
Well, the whole thing is just a huge dichotomy. Like God is within me, but I am not. But God is also outside of me, and it's
yeah,
like body, mind, like the Trinity. There's three parts in one. But I'm like, oh, body, mind, and spirit. Like there's the physical me. There's the me of the future that I'm trying to manifest into, and then there's the spirit. It's kind of like human beings. If our matter of our body is a river, we are the whirlpool. So the whirlpool, like we're changing, but yet we're stagnant. You are the thing that transcends time and space. You're not the body that you're in now. You're the you can't even say the brain, because the brain you had 3 years ago is not the brain you have right now. So how is that possible?
right.
So, and that's kind of what all those things are elaborating on, I think.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why that book *Sapiens* we were talking about last time, it tells a beautiful story from a scientific perspective, but man, it's missing the best part, which is like,
Oh,
okay, you're
religion?
not asking why this happened. Like, there's
Yes.
a big reason, something that
Yes.
there was a fire burning inside of mankind, of humans, and something sparked or ignited that, and maybe it was a fungus, like maybe it was mushrooms. Maybe they started eating more fish and it changed the way their brain developed. Maybe it was more meat. Maybe it was because aliens came and altered our DNA.
Mhm.
Or maybe it's because there's this divine spark, and the book of, or the Bible tells this story in a way that maybe it's abstract, or maybe it's meant to be taken metaphorically or something, but either way, it's still getting the message across of there was man, there was nature, there was universe, and it's like this never-ending story that's telling how we've gotten to here and why we're in this predicament. And only recently have we had like the real luxury and technology to like examine this with the microscope, where before it's been kind of like um, just scattered everywhere. But now with the internet, like these ideas from all over the globe throughout the ages are kind of are accessible for anyone, and we can kind of take these and filter them through our own brain and see what they mean to us. And that's why, like, man, I can read the Bible and read it on Monday and get one thing out of it. Read Tuesday, get another thing out
Yeah.
of it. And you can do that with
The living, breathing thing. That's what they mean. It's like it transforms, you transform. The Bible,
right.
no man steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same
Absolutely.
river, and you are not the same man.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And that's why, that's to me, that is like, that's the magic of, people, you use God or the universe interchangeably, and it's like, I don't know if that really matters or not.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, that's the magic and that's the beauty whenever you start seeing the synchronicities.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. Like, that's to me has been whenever I felt like, wow, God's speaking to me. Wow, I can feel the spirit. I can feel the universe conspiring in a way that is communicating.
Like right now, man, this is conspiring. 6
Yeah.
years ago, you and I started doing this. I'm like, dude, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
And here we are kind of talking about it. So were you ever atheist, you think?
I think I played with it and tried it on. I tried that outfit on. Yeah. It didn't really fit in some ways. And I think it was also just a point of being rebellious. It was like, it's like this thing where you have to like do something just to know what it feels like. I don't know if I really am, but I got to say it and I got to mean it and I got to try this on.
You got to play the part.
Exactly.
Yeah. You got to play football to see if you like it or not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of,
that's also a thing that people are scared to do. And maybe atheists, there are atheists out there who are scared to really, really give into like the supernatural and give into this idea that there is something pulling the strings that you can't measure.
God, wouldn't life like? I'm at the point where I'm trying to find magic. I think life is so much less interesting. Joe Rogan talks about that. He's always like, "Well, why we always got to go to the woo-woo stuff?" I'm like, like the woo-woo stuff's cool, and it confuses everyone. I'm like, yeah, that's what makes life cool. Like flying.
But it's like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It's like you open one, or you find an answer to one question, opens a door to like 10 more questions. And that's the way everything is. That's why that's like the fractal universe of the world we're living. It's like you got as above, so below type deal.
Solar system is just like this, like an atom, which is just
right.
like a cell.
We can analyze this world that we're living in down to the nitty gritty, and all it's doing is opening up more questions. And at least if religion is wrong and if faith and spirituality is all made up, at least it provides some resolution and like something that's substance, like it's meaning for some people. And some people don't need it. Some people do. I don't know that I necessarily need it, and I don't know that I necessarily don't. But I've played with both sides, and I always come back to it. I always come back to Christianity. I always come back to talking to God. I always come back to thinking about how my grandparents would view me. And
what about aliens? What about the Illuminati? What do you think about that?
It's hard for me to get into these conversations, man. That's where things get a little slippery. It's like, am I going to devote my life to this right now? All right, give me 16 Adderalls and I'm going to stay up for 12 days. I'm going to
well, that's one area of importance I think you and I have gone down in the last 10 to 15 years. The Illuminati, which for you, those who out there that don't know what that is, there's a power structure. There's a people at the top that are in a conspiracy to hold power.
It's Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Yeah.
Masonic Lodge.
Yeah, Masonic Lodge. Oprah's in there. Bill Gates.
It's like it goes on forever though, and it's like there's so much credibility in a lot of things I've read or like documentaries or YouTube videos you watch. It's compelling, and I don't know though. I think that it seems silly to think that nothing outside of this atmosphere on Earth has ever penetrated and it had life, because I think there's got to be something out there that resembles some form of life that would be similar to this. If the universe is as big as scientists predict or hypothesize, then
the Drake equation. The Drake equation. Not the rapper. It's a quote. It's a formula basically saying that if there are, in the Milky Way galaxy, I think there's, I don't know what, 100 million stars. I might even be underestimating that. I don't know. And there's galaxies out there that are 1,000 times the size of ours. Okay. But if you can just like, you get this astronomical number when you try and guess how many stars are out there. So if you even like try and make an argument and be like, well, I doubt there's many solar system like ours. Like, okay, how many? 1 in a million? Okay. 1 in a million is a big number, but when there are 100,000 trillion suns, that's nothing, right? So then so let's just say there's 1 million solar system like ours. We'll say there's only like 1 in 1,000 that have, a Goldilocks zone like us. Okay. Well, that still leaves like whatever the math, 10,000 planets just like ours out there.
Right.
So I'm always been kind of, you know, the alien thing, I think, intrigued me probably more than anything as a child. I don't know what it was about it. The movie Signs,
Oh yeah,
E.T.
yeah. And I mean, ghosts as well. Like ghost stories used to like, I mean, ghosts and aliens, things that weren't necessarily provable, things I've seen, but they're ideas that like, I mean, at the very least, they're fun, man.
Yeah.
Fun to
Yeah.
think
And
about.
why is that? Why would they be fun if that's not
Exactly.
an
That's what I
like,
was thinking
yeah.
today. I don't remember what I was listening to or thinking about. It was like, but I was thinking, why would it be that humans are always attracted to this, like the bizarre scenario, like the conspiracy or the alternate reality idea?
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know. It's adventurous at the very least, but
Yep.
we're also obsessed with doomsday and the end of the world. So
Yeah. But that's probably another good like evolutionarily good trait, like to be prepared for all out war and all that stuff. So, what are some things that have propelled you along your journey that, you know, from a biohacking perspective? I don't really like, I don't know how you feel about the biohacking word. It's,
yeah, I mean, okay,
but we
this
know
is
what
an
we're talking about.
inhaler that I biohack my lungs with when I'm wheezing.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Yeah.
No, okay, well, it's kind of like the topics kind of merged together anyway because, um, so back to my upbringing a little bit. I was born with a condition called pectus excavatum.
Hmm.
I showed you, like, I have a scar on my chest. I was born with a concave chest. Lungs didn't have a lot of room to grow. I was very, like, hunched over, very skinny, had pneumonia when I was a real small baby. Was born not breathing, had asthma, allergies, like, just, like, sick as fuck all the time and felt like shit all the time. Didn't know why. So as I got a little bit, I guess whenever I started working at GNC, I went through the classic like douchebag phase of, okay,
Get
I'm gonna do
swole,
some,
bro.
yeah, read these magazines and follow these workouts and take all these supplements and then wonder why I'm not getting big. I'm just bloated and farting
Yeah.
a lot. And, yeah. So then I kind of like saw through that bullshit around the same time that I was seeing through some dogmatic bullshit in religion. And I think psychedelics kind of propelled me into that state of the otherness maybe, and maybe exploring other ways of thinking and doing things because I didn't really know much about nutrition. I sure as hell didn't know anything about moving my body. I also dislocated my hip when I was 17.
Mm.
And so I had back problems. I just did not move well. But I got into CrossFit. I've had a buddy, Willie Moore, who ran Riverbend CrossFit at the time. He was from North City, like just down the road where I grew up. And he was in Edwardsville. So I started going and doing CrossFit. And then Logan was working at GNC. Logan turned me on to the Paleo Solution, turned me on to Rob Lewis' podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I just a combination of things. And then I was also starting to mess around with like some psilocybin just on my own in meditation and like using it as a means of just kind of exploring my own imagination, spirituality, reading about it, not just, eating a bag of mushrooms and going running around in the park. Like I was actually I saw this doing work. And so I got a degree in special education, but like I got a doctorate in like health and physiology and,
Mm-hmm.
and nutrition, dietetic stuff. But it's like this idea of functional movement and this ancestral paleo type of way of eating. And it just sort of clicked with me and it made sense. And I think it makes sense to everybody when they see the big picture of it. Like, okay, there are things about the way we live today that are fucking us up. Like they're messing up our health. They're not helping anything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's things that people did back ages ago that are they're tried and proven. Like we've gotten away from just moving, socializing, having a community, the basic things that CrossFit, offered originally back in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of, and then mixed with working with GNC, I just kind of got into supplements. I was studying the brain a lot for my actual undergrad, learning about how our brain works, different chemicals. Then I got into nootropics, of course. And this was before like Alpha Brain or
Right.
Bulletproof Coffee. Like this was back whenever I was really unsure of what was going on and what
I really wish we'd have done something back then, man. Like that was what, when Joe Rogan was in episode 200, when you and I were like, when we did our podcast,
before you shaved his head.
yeah.
before
before Dave Asprey was on his podcast, before Bulletproof was there, before, Alpha, I don't even know if Alpha Brain was out yet.
No, but I think I was one of like the first 100 customers probably to buy it because it was like just perfect timing, But anyway, and they had like the Shroom Tech Sport, which was also like, anything mushroom must work because I liked the way that, So, and I read like Food of the Gods and I read like some different books on just different theories about the way
Food of the Gods is a
body
book by
is.
Terence McKenna where he thinks that humans evolved eating psilocybin mushrooms and it like transformed our brains. So
Yeah, and he goes into just different forms of intoxication that have, you know, influenced and shaped culture, you know, all over the
yeah.
world.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wine. I mean, we still have wine. Catholics still have wine when they have when they you know, take the blood of Christ. And a lot of these other religions had some form of psychedelics that were involved with their ceremonies.
yeah, yeah. So, um, I guess yeah, eating better and then learning how to move my body, getting in touch with like meeting Pablo. Pablo changed so much for my life, just because of my posture and some breathing patterns and just injuries that I didn't know I was nagging. Yeah, now I'm constantly
Yeah.
like very neurotic about it. And Logan too, with some gymnastic strength training stuff. And we were all kind of on the same page. Like, you know, we were all friends with you as well. And the biohacking probably the first things that I remember doing was getting up and like having my shoes and my tennis shoes and sweatpants and a hoodie right next to the bed, in the middle of like December through January, back whenever I was like maybe 23 or 4. And as soon as I woke up, I'd get that on and I'd go sprint to the stop sign and back. So it was like not to get in shape. It was only to wake myself up and get like an endorphin rush, get some cold weather, and then come right in, take a cold shower. And that was something I was doing just because like, man, this feels really good. And I didn't really know what I was doing to myself. I mean, you know, but, and it's just kind of since then, man, I mean, like a lot of people in the biohack sphere,
It's all because it's cool and trendy, I think.
yeah. And it gets silly, but I mean, I've tried several things. I've tried the paracetams and, you know, I've tried different, like what I do today is very simplified. Like I usually diffuse some type of essential oils by my desk at work, by my bed, different scents. I've been shown to create different physiological reactions.
Rosemary's good for memory.
That's what I'm doing right now, brother. Look,
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember.
Dang, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's some smoke. Got some rosemary.
Yeah. And like I have magnesium oil, so I put that on like my neck and the bottoms of my feet before I go to bed. Some red light therapy. I have a red light that's actually like a grow light that you can get much cheaper than an actual Juve light.
Yep.
And I use that as a lamp in my bedroom. So at nighttime, instead of having a light on, I mean, that's the light I use while I'm reading before I go to sleep or something like that. But
yeah, no blue lights before bed.
What about you? Do you do anything like that now?
A little bit. I do, like you're saying. I've had a journal for 5 or 6. I have a dream journal for over 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
So the first thing I do when I wake up is I go to I have sweatpants and hoodie on. I'll throw that on real quick, and I have a meditation mat. What's that? Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. And so I have like a little meditation map, and I pull up my Evernote, and I don't like getting on my computer, but I'm just not good at writing things down. I used to do a dream journal through penmanship, and I can type so much faster. So the first thing I do is try to remember my dreams, because I think there's a huge connection between the consciousness and the subconscious, and figuring out, is there something going on in my life? Is something stressing me? Is there a sign or something that I'm missing? And then what I will do is put on my headphones and listen to some type of meditation. Usually it can be binaural beats, whatever it is. And right now I'm struggling. I'm probably hitting 3 to 5 minutes if I'm lucky. Sometimes it's some affirmations. Sometimes it's some like YouTube videos.
You don't have time, or you just don't want to do it bored?
Kind of, what's been weird for me is that a lot of people talk about winning the morning, and I want to win the morning, but part of me, it almost stresses me out to do a morning routine. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to do this shit.
Because if you don't do it, your day's fucked, man.
Yeah.
Once you get used to it and you feel good, then it's like you can't stop thinking about how, I didn't put cinnamon in my tea.
Well, and I don't even know. I'm actually going to go the opposite direction. I don't know how much it alters my day that much. Like, to be honest, and maybe just because I've been doing it so long, and I think I'm hitting an 80-20. Like, I write all what I need to do for the day. I get up out of bed, and then, I do a little meditation, and then from there, it's pretty much a normal day. Go in, put on my contacts, get some food, kind of.
So you don't like the routine because it's too restrictive?
Sometimes I'm just lazy.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm like, and it stresses me out. It's almost like when, like me, I go to the gym enough, and there's sometimes where, it's like, am I stressing myself out to do this, and it's defeating the purpose? Like, this is supposed to make me feel good. Like, you're like, when you talked about waking up and running to the mailbox, I'm like, man, that sounds miserable. I don't even think that make me feel like cold showers.
It doesn't. No, that's the thing. It sucks the whole time. But
Yeah.
as soon as you're done, it's like, oh man, I did a good job.
And I don't, maybe I'm missing that feeling. I haven't had that feeling in a good while. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll figure that out.
I don't do that every day. I haven't done that actually all of this winter. My routine's been different this winter because I don't know why. I just mix it up. I don't stick with many things for real long periods of time. So even if it's working, it's like I'll get away from it. Maybe I get bored with it. I just kind of listen to my body. Like sometimes I just pick up a real light kettlebell and just make up a little flow and just move for 5 minutes. I use that elevation training mask.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that like people would kind of hate on them because like, oh, it's not really like training. No, it's not. But if you use it correctly, like it forces you to breathe differently and hold posture and engage different muscles. It does open up. And for me, who has trouble breathing anyway, it's a perfect thing in the morning. So sometimes I just do that with some beats on and like roll around in the floor. So I'm not a morning person. It takes me, but I wake up now. I guess I'm just busier and I have, kids and family and stuff. I like 4:30 to 7. Like I like that period of time because it's like that's my time for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Well, and then what was interesting last time we hung out, like Kratom. Like I want to talk a little bit about that because it's that's one of the biohacks I didn't really get into. It was one of the more interesting, cutting edge, like cool things that people got into. What brought you into that? And
I wouldn't call it a biohack for me at all. It's kind of like an alternative to having a cocktail at night sometimes.
mm-hmm.
I don't know.
What is it? It's just some type of powder?
It's called like Kratom would be like the actual way to say it. But if you're an asshole, you'd say it like that. Kratom's how most people say it.
Yeah.
I can't even remember the botanical, like the actual name of it. But it's like native to Southeast Asia, I believe, like Malaysia, Indonesia area. It grows on a tree. It's just a leaf. And it's really the way it's used isn't too different than like a coffee or a tobacco or I don't know. I wouldn't go near as far as to put it as like an opiate or like cocaine.
I think it is somewhat of it's like an opiate agonist, but it works. But you're saying it works that way. You feel that way. At least I did. When I took it, I almost felt a little drunk.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you've taken Vicodin before or Tramadol, it's a very similar feeling to that. Now, there's like different strains. There's like a white strain, white leaf, a red, and a green. So the red, and everyone's different. And you know how placebo plays so much of a role.
Yeah, and people say that with weed.
Stores now, and it's like one white has like a picture of Popeye colored on it. The other one has like a battery on it, and it's like, okay, they're trying to like make you think that this is what it's going to do. And then you're like, oh yeah, it did do that to me.
Yep.
But for being as like objective as possible, I think that the white leaf, I like taking it, like I'll have a bag in a drawer by my bed, and I'll sometimes, if like I don't feel like getting up, but I gotta get up within the next like hour or so anyway, it's like I'll take like a teaspoon of that or so.
So it stimulates you.
It does. The biggest thing for me though is it alleviates pain, man. It's like I have just stiffness a lot. I have osteoarthritis in both my hips supposedly, according to the doctor. And, I have had a lot of injuries in the morning in the cold. Like my body does take a minute to get like warmed up. So in the morning, it's good for that. And sometimes at night, like if I'm not feeling real relaxed or my body's kind of sore from just maybe even working out or something, but the red vein, I'll take that at nighttime and sleep like a baby and wake up feeling great. And it's really weird. But then there's been times, man, when I've taken too much and I've been real nauseous or I've been real irritable. But I've not really seen any real negative side effects as long as you don't like get it in the pill form and take like 30 pills or something ridiculous. I like to take it in a natural powder form. You're not going to abuse it versus popping pills. You can skip the step of the painful taste of it because it does not taste good. But I don't know. I've enjoyed it, but it's like anything. Like I've been doing decaf coffee for the last week or so, just because I do that every once in a while. It's like I don't really want to just wake up and rely on coffee to feel good. So when I'm doing that, sometimes I'll switch to Kratom, or sometimes I'll just make myself chug water or do something in place of that, to kind of get a physiological change that makes me feel good, pick me up a little bit. And same thing with alcohol. Like I don't drink a whole lot, and I don't like the way I feel in the morning after drinking. You take a couple of scoops of Kratom or something in the late evening.
So it helps with the hangover.
Helps
I know
with,
well,
well,
it does.
there is no hangover from it, I
Yeah.
guess. But
But what if you took it as if you're hungover? You think it would help?
yeah, it does. I've done that. Yeah, yeah. But as long as it doesn't make you nauseous, you take too much. But
Yeah, I was going to
it's
say
not
that. I
something
felt
that,
a little nauseous too when I did it.
yeah. So like I've actually given some to my parents because my mom has arthritis in her hands. Like she's popping Advil like daily,
Yeah.
like, and has been for a while. And like she is in pain. Like I know she's in pain. So I'm not going to tell her not to take the Advil anymore because I've tried that a little bit. But
Hmm.
instead it's like, hey, why don't you try this instead and see if that helps at all and see if you have any effects. Like just pay attention. And she's tried it and she likes it. She doesn't take it often, but she does like it.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I mean, I don't know that it's good logic to say this, but trusting nature over medicine, and not always necessarily the case, I'm sure. But I know versus taking a Vicodin or Advil and NSAID every day,
Hmm.
I feel pretty strongly that Kratom would be a better alternative than that. But
Hmm.
I'm no doctor, Michael.
I don't know either. That's one of the areas. One of the most frustrating things about being a doctor is people say that. Like someone will come and be like, "I have this weird rash on my knee." I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what the hell that is. Go see a doctor. So it makes it fun though. So I actually had a question too. Your blog is officially up and up. Got on the.
It's up. It's gonna be under construction a little bit because I'm not a web designer and I'm very, very limited with my
Speak to the choir.
technology. So I just play with it, but it takes, if I played it for a few hours at a time, like it starts looking a little bit better and runs smoothly. It's just the whole design's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of tweaky. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, there's some blog posts on there for sure. There's some things I've written over the last couple of years.
And did we did we touch on some of those things as far as with spirituality or?
Yeah, probably more coherently in this conversation than some of the writings are. Some of the writings are literally just, I sit down and type until I bleed, like get it out and get it under. Very little proofreading, very little editing. It's like, this is what I thought at the time. This is what I said. I'm
Mhm.
putting it out there and I'm not going to give myself a chance to like pull it back and like tweak it and, make it sound better for a reader. And so there's some things on there, yeah, that we talk about. I talk about spirituality a lot and just thoughts basically about Christianity, about God, the nature of God, the nature of existence, what is consciousness, the soul.
Mhm.
So those are just topics that, man, I'm always fascinated with, and I love having conversation about them. So it's like, well, I guess I always kind of think like, man, that website, the Sam Effect that I talked about earlier, it changed my life so much. I never even met this guy. I don't even know what he
Yeah.
does. Like,
Mhm.
he doesn't even have the website anymore, I don't think. He was just putting out, like, hey, I feel kind of curious about this. What do you think? Hey, ever thought about that? And like, hey, I
Yeah.
eat like this. And that's like, my, hungry 20-year-old ass was like, yes, 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 I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. And it changed me. And it, like, set me off in a direction that I feel like has just changed my life so much. So like, who knows? Maybe someone will stumble onto one of these things that I've put out there, or one of your podcast episodes or something. And you can only hope, that some
Yeah.
18, 20-year-old out there will see it.
And I that's one other thing. I wonder if you think that there was a gap. I don't know. I think now a lot of the kids, when I mean kids, I'm saying like 20-year-old. Like we were kids. I'm saying 20 to 22. There was this revival. There was this interesting spurt. I don't know if it's just a millennial thing where we got out on the internet, we started listening to Joe Rogan, and we all came out like us. Like we kind of broke away from religion, but yet we're still kind of spiritual. We're exploring paleo, biohacking. I don't know if I see that as much as in the 20 to 20-year-olds right now. They're all like on Instagram watching Logan Paul.
They're posting pictures of their high top shoes. That's all they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. And I don't know what to think of the whole Instagram movement, where that's going to go, if it's going to die. I think Facebook's on its way out.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I don't keep up with what's going on in the tech world that much. I like Instagram. Like when I first got it, it was kind of like I had a Pinterest account back then when I was like 20, I guess, because it's like, oh, cool ideas. These things inspire me.
I like
I want to be
Pinterest.
surrounded, but I want to be fed by this. It's like, surround yourself with people that inspire you and make you better. That's what I was doing with that. And then it's like, now my mom's liking shit on there. It's like, well, you can't be sexy on Instagram when your mom's liking your pics.
Yep.
And you can't be like too transformative or put yourself out there that's too like different than your norm whenever everyone that you know follows you and they're like, I mean, you can. I guess it just changes things a little bit.
Yeah. It's like, what do you filter? How authentic do you be? Do you talk about like, you know, doing drugs? And even today, you know, like this podcast, we talked about what part of psychedelics are, do you share, what you don't share,
Yeah.
you know, but you want to be authentic. And I think the world needs that. But there's also a level of people being over authentic now. I think
Well, it loses
so raw.
the words overused. It's like anything, man. We ruin words, man. We drag them through the mud and we just like, we change the meaning of it to the point where they're unrecognizable. Even like the word God, that's something that is just, what do you even mean? It's like Jordan Peterson says when he's asked, "Do you believe in God?" He's like, "Well, I guess I need to first ask you, what do you mean by that? I mean, what constitutes as God to you? Because it's different for me, I'm sure."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I still do that when people ask me. The big one is truth. What is truth? You know, what is truthful? You know, like what's a white lie, and what I don't know. Those are conversations I have with myself daily. And I don't know if there was some type of spark, or if people have always been having these conversations, or if it's the internet that's bringing us together, like Nietzsche and Plato.
Right. I have to, like, I'll be honest, man. I don't think I'm clever enough to have these conversations without, like,
oh yeah,
you connecting me to these things and bringing these things. I don't think. I think I would be like, I'm not right. I'm not even gonna say it, don't offend somebody, but I don't think I'd be very interesting, and I don't think I would be as fulfilled. So there's so many good things about it, but yeah, we're towing a very fine line, because especially with Instagram, man, it's so like, it's just so indicative of human nature. Like,
mm-hmm.
It can start out as something cool, but we're eventually it's gonna be all just about ass and titties and money. Like, it always goes to that. Especially, it's so American of us.
Yeah. And why is that? Yeah, we capitalism. I think the basis of it makes total sense. Everyone collaborates, everyone does what they're best at, and then everyone benefits. And now, I listened to Simon Sinek. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was talking about how you know, corporations. There was this level of, we used capitalism because it was beneficial for kind of everyone. And we increased profit margins to give people more jobs, to grow companies, which was awesome. But now you see companies, they'll fire 10 people on the spot. Just they're already profiting, and then they just go ahead and fire people because they can profit more. It's like, why does that banker need an extra $10 million? And not that $10 million could hire freaking 100 people, or just even at 10 people at $100,000 a year. And I don't think we do that anymore.
No.
At least in my opinion, and what I see in the businesses that I've been around, and what I'm seeing. But I don't know. I have very naive eyes.
Yeah, and I think that we're kind of cursed with that because of some humble beginnings that how we started. You know, I mean, I don't know. My family has always been just fine off. Like, we've been never really struggled in any way, but I've never had ambitions of like just obtaining like more money and more.
Dan Bilzerian style, just like having yachts.
That'd be cool, man. I'm not gonna lie, that would be a nice lifestyle.
It'd be interesting.
But I would get tired of it.
I'd maybe do it for a day, and then I'd probably be like,
I'd do it for a week or 6, but that's
yeah. I mean, it's interesting to see where everything's gonna go, especially the Instagram thing. I think is gonna really throw I don't think people understand what it's doing. You know, it's kind of the same thing with like the Joe Rogan experience, what it did. You know the guy PewDiePie?
Who?
PewDiePie is his name. His name is, I don't know, he's from Sweden, I think. He's a European. I don't remember, he's from Northern European. And his YouTube channel it just crossed 80 million subscribers. 80 million subscribers.
What does he do? Analyze video games?
Yeah, he does that and some other interesting things. And it's just like, right, 80 million. So when he launches a video, like if I posted this podcast up, can you imagine if 80 million people watch this podcast?
Yeah, change the
like
world.
A third of the United States, maybe. I don't know.
What fucking time someone listened to us?
I don't know what that would do. Can you imagine? I'm gonna post this tonight. We're gonna wake up.
It would go straight to my head, and I would like start changing who I am. I mean, obviously,
like, I got a podcast every day.
Yeah. I can't do it today. I have a blemish. Even though today, man, I got a chocolate milk stain on my damn shirt.
I didn't even notice, man. No, trust me, I get that. I'm like, oh, is this on my face? Yeah. I have a light in here to affect my lighting a little bit, so it makes a big difference. Appearance is a huge part about being human. Yeah,
it is, and that's another thing that kind of like I've struggled with in the last, never really grown up that I remember, but in the last, like, for sure, for 6-7 years, with like even how I dress and my style. It's kind of like I don't want to look like I'm trying to be something, like I guess it's because I see a lot of insecurity, like obvious insecurities on people, and I see who people are obviously trying to be. And when you look on Instagram, everyone's trying to be like everyone else, but no one wants to admit it. Everyone wants to be the one. And so with my style, I dress so plain. And like I've stripped it down to that where it's like, fuck, I have a pair of Carhartt jeans that I wear like pretty much all the time. And I have a couple of like Ruka shirts and like some On It shirts, like things that, I feel good. This is me and I wear it. But it took me a while to like do that because especially whenever I was in the dating game, I'm trying to like mold myself into something that someone who do you like? Yeah. So,
Now you're doing a lot of physical activity now.
Yeah. I mean, I always do. I mean, like I said, I probably exercise. I probably have a movement session of some sort that lasts 30 to 60 minutes, probably 4 to 5 days a week.
That's pretty average. Good.
Yeah. I do like an hour of yoga once a week or so. I made my own like little programming, like 3 days a week of kettlebells, and it's meant to be like I can do it one time through. And it takes me about 10 to 15 minutes to do it. But if like I get up early, I'm feeling good, I'm going to do 3 sets of that easy. And sometimes it's like I overslept. I don't feel good, but I make myself do that shit just because when I don't, and it's kind of it is kind of a catch-22. Like when I don't do it, it does fuck up my day. After what you talked about that, like I do put pressure on myself when I don't meet my own standards. But physical activity to me, it's like it gets me high almost. It's a replacement for a drug that like it fills my body with chemicals that make me feel good. And if I feel good, then I can go out and do good. And when I don't feel good, I kind of let it affect the way I interact with other people, the job I perform at work. And that's a damn shame, I know, but I'm working on that too, man. I'm trying to be more selfless.
Hey, it's the human becoming, not the human being.
Yeah.
Human becoming.
Yeah. Are you doing, you don't do much bodybuilding stuff anymore then, huh?
I mean, most of my workouts, I still have a tendency to do more bodybuilding stuff. It's just, I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable bench pressing. I'm comfortable. So I've been seeing a couple different people, some of the people that Pablo connected with me to out here, Ben Ramos. He showed me some different functional movement stuff that I integrate into my bodybuilding. Because there's
brand. What is that?
Full Force Rehab.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He's got real good. Yeah, I mean, he's got real good stuff. Yeah. I've had him on the podcast. I need to get him back on since I've rebooted. But yeah, so I'm in this interesting place where, goals used to really drive me. And now I'm trying to come to a place. There's another dichotomy in life of that you need goals to push, and you need to be on a hunt, right? Because you need a target, you need something to move you forward in life, and you need to be somewhat rewarded. It's because things have to change. But then there's also the dichotomy of like trying to just be happy with where you are.
Sure.
That's one thing I kind of struggle with, like with my body. I'm pretty happy with the way I look with my shirt off. But when I go in the gym, I'm like, what am I doing this for?
Exactly.
I'm already happy. So then that's where with bodybuilding,
it is a tough balancing act.
And same thing with strength training. It's just like, well, I'm trying to get stronger. Why? Because why do we do anything?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at. And I might actually hit the gym here a little bit after this. Suck down a Celsius heat.
That's true. Like if I feel like I look good naked, like I'll coast a little bit, and then I'll look in the mirror like, hey, you know what? I need to tighten that up a little bit. I need to lift more. And I can, as you get older and like you've been in this game kind of, I mean, neither of us are professional athletes, but we've been exercising and working with our bodies in ways that are very physical for about a decade at least. So it's like at this point, I kind of know what works for you. You kind of know what you need, and you can kind of be a little bit more, I guess, fluid with what you're doing with your programming or what kind of movements you're doing. Because I don't think it's in either of our blood to let ourselves just become like a lazy or fat piece of shit. And
not us, man. No. Never.
And if I do, I'll buy a convertible.
There you go. Yeah, old man. Yeah, lose your hair too.
Yeah.
All right, man. You ready to wrap it up? Human Becoming, Rhet Vaughan. Your blog, humanbecoming.com?
Thehumanbecoming.com, yeah.
Thehumanbecoming.com. And I'll link it in the YouTube so people can come and check out your stuff. And you're on Instagram too, Release the Rhetness.
Yes, sir.
Cool, dude. Appreciate you having the conversation with me. This is one for the ages, and things will, hopefully I'll look back on it in a couple of years and be like, what was I thinking then? What was Rhet talking about?
I tried to do less mouth breathing this time. I don't know if you could tell or not. I had a cold last time, so.
No one notices. No one will pay attention, so don't worry about it. All right. We're signing off then. This is Dr. Michael Moeller with the Michael Moeller Mentality.
Peace out.
Thanks again for coming on, Rhet.
See you, man.